Alright, today we'll be going through the Monolophosaurus skins in the recently released Camp Cretaceous DLC. I'm going to head off the first comment you might have and say that I know the species viewer exists, but then you look at the dinosaurs in that in a big black void, which doesn't really, vibe with me. I like to see them in the environment. And so we're going to check out every skin here in our little Pennsylvania environmental showcase area. That is pretty awesome. So we've got our initial Sonoran Desert Rana. We're going in the same order we did for the Herrera showcase. We'll get the 2015 skin at the end. I like this. I like the way the model looks here in general. The eyes are kind of interesting. If you look at it directly from the front, they kind of bulge out, which is an interesting look to the thing. Obviously, Camp Cretaceous style. We got the spines in the back of the head here. It doesn't really have, I seem to remember the Camp Cretaceous. Let me pull up a picture on my other computer here. We'll take a little longer on the first one to talk about the mono in general. But I remember the Camp Cretaceous one having more of a bump on the back of the skull. Maybe I'm mistaken there. I mean, obviously you're adapting the cartoon version to the live action format here. No, I guess I am mistaken on that. Am I thinking of... Oh, no, you can see it. Yeah, it depends a little bit on the image you look at for the mono. But yeah, in some images, the mono's got a little bit more of a hump here where the neck connects to the skull. Maybe that's actually a glitch in the animation, now that I think about it. Because some of the other shots look much more like this, where the skull more smoothly connects to the back of the neck. Including the original shot where you first see it in the woods, it looks more like this. In some of the interior shots, you have more of a hump coming up. But anyway, yeah, pretty good representation of the Monolophosaurus. I'm pretty jazzed to see this. I really like the Monolophosaurus in the show. I thought that was a good inclusion, seeing more small carnivores. I'm glad that we get the a version of it that looks... the body plan still looks like the Camp Cretaceous Monolophosaurus, which I like. These base skins here are not based on the show. These are just, Frontier's own skins. We'll get to the canon skin at the end. Although there's, multiple color variations for the mono in the show, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there's a picture I'm looking at here which shows, gray and green ones. So I wonder if any of these base skins actually kind of resemble it. Well, anyway, let's check out the next one. Again, Sonoran Desert with a different pattern. Sonoran Calcarana. This is a good chance to look at kind of the difference here. Obviously, it's the stripes, but sometimes there's some other little differences. The stripes are different, but also the head colors here in this case. Yeah, so this one's got a much more subdued crest, which is a really interesting dynamic. Seeing the very vibrant crest versus the subdued crest. I like when they do that with the patterns, that they aren't just all simple palette swaps one-to-one, that there's different details that kind of change out depending on what color they are in a different pattern. I do like the brighter crest more here. This reminds me a bit of Proceratosaurus in a good way. This one, I mean, it's not bad either. It's got a good desert vibe to it, that one, which I dig. That one's interesting. The green is a little strange with the brown here, I think. It's kind of an issue I had with some of the Herrera patterns, where the striping being lighter than the body looks a little weird. I like the head, though. This one's interesting because he's got, if we can get him here in the sunlight, yeah, he's got this red going on here, which is really interesting. Also, look at this texture. That's pretty good. It's a good texture. It's good that it's not overly glossy like some of the dinosaurs end up being. Apparently the glossier skins come from, they're outsourced by Frontier to a different development company. Which is, it's understandable, I think, to outsource some of your work to other companies. I'm not against that. I do wish they were more consistent in quality, in texture quality, let's say. Or bump maps, or whatever causes it. I don't know 3D modeling. But yeah, interesting with the highlights here on the snout. Do we have highlights on the snout that are different? here? Not really. This has got more of this like orange yellow pattern that loops around, which is really interesting. And then yeah, you just have like the one color, and then you've got this different. This one has this different thing going on here with this red. I mean, I guess there's red in here. It's kind of mixed in. It just looks, it stands out more on this skin, I guess, is what it is. It's also kind of got red hands. Do the hands actually change color? No, it looks like the hand colorization is part of the base skin. Number 4. I like that one. I like that stripe coloring on this. That's pretty cool. That's an interesting look. I dig it. Pulkarana Sonoran Desert. Did we say the last one? This was Lithobates, the green skin. Or the green pattern. Yeah, I like the body striping a lot. The face ain't bad. We've got the same pattern, of course, just different colorizations. I think I like the body on this one the most. I think this stands out a lot to me. I don't have any objection to the way the head is colored here. It's just the body. I like the body color a lot. Oh yeah, the other weird thing with the mono is like these double like nostrils or something. It's like that in the show. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a double nostril. If this is just supposed to be like a notch. Here, this looks a lot more like a notch than a nostril. The front hole. I don't know. Actually, the more you zoom out, the more it looks. Well, it doesn't look as pitted. It doesn't look as deep as the back nostril. So maybe it is just a wrinkle. I don't know if there's ever been anything about what that second hole or notch is supposed to represent on the Camp Cretaceous mono. It's an interesting detail. A little weird. I think I like the blue pattern here on the crest. I think that's a nice color. This is running counter to my other argument of like lighter colored stripes. I think this works really well. The white striping on the darker pattern here, this looks cool. It's also really interesting how it's the highlight scales. It's like the striping is on the scale like top and not the full scale. So you get this like speckled pattern. I think that looks really interesting. Really unique from what I've seen in terms of how dinosaurs look in this game. Where it's seeing the individual scales that are colored here. That's really cool. I like the way the tail looks on this one. I mean, they all look the same, but like the color pattern reminds me of a lizard here a lot. And I like this blue on the crest. This one's interesting here because unlike some of the other ones, the colorization is really just on the crest. This arc here that goes around the face is a lot more subtle in this one than in the others. So far, I'm pretty impressed with the variation between the patterns they've managed to do here. Just by coloring different parts of the pattern differently, they've done a really good job of setting these apart. That's really impressive. Like, the difference between all of the stuff going on around the jaw and back towards the eye compared to this one where it's really just the crest, that's an impressive difference. I'm digging the dino so far. This one works pretty well too with the lighter stripe colors. This one's got very much a desert vibe to it, with the yellower striping. This one was Sonoran Desert Pilophylax. The last one was Papurana. Yeah, so in Papurana Pilophylax. This one's got an interesting look on the face too, where the coloring's pretty subtle. That's an interesting look, where you get this subtle shift in the redder tones. I really like the jaw. The way they get this red here and the red around the jaw, that looks really good. I like that, yeah. The crest here is kind of fine. It's like whatever. But the jaw colorization is pretty cool. And then we have the blank, Sonoran Desert blank. We'll get a good chance to look at the pattern or the differences on the base skin here. Yeah, so no striping along the body at all. You get the kind of discolorization of the hands and the feet, which is part of the standard pattern. And then the crest does have some colorization to it, it looks like. It's a little darker than the head here. Not too much to say about that since it's just a blank, but that looks fine. That was a good set of patterns. There was none that stood out too bad as like not being interesting. I think the lethal baits with the green stripes was my least favorite there. I like this one. I like these kind of tropical bird stylings on the face here. It makes me think of like toucans a little bit maybe. Obviously not the color palette, but just the brightly colored facial patterning makes me think of that. This one's giving me a real strong Ceratosaurus vibe in the body, with the gray and the black. But obviously the face is completely different. Oh, we saw the social animation there in the back, I think. We'll have to try and catch that properly at some point. Next up. Oh, that was the Rana pattern, by the way. That was the... Oh, they did it again. We caught part of it there. This is Death Valley Rana. Next up, we have... Death Valley Calcorana. We got, again, very subtle colorization. This one's interesting where we get more of a jaw color that aligns with the crest color, which makes the yellow striping on the muzzle stand out a lot more, which is interesting. Including this little bit of colorization along the base of the crest. Body patterning is really subtle here, which can be good. It can be good to have a dinosaur that the body patterning becomes more subtle than stands out. Sometimes it's nice to have that variation in your park, or it's just looks better on the particular dinosaur. That one's not bad. Death Valley Calcorana. That's it for that hatchery. Moving on. Many hatcheries, many dinosaurs to go through. This is probably lethal baits again, right? Yep, Death Valley lethal baits. We get the green striping. I think it probably works a little bit better here with the space pattern, actually. Still not... Lethal baits seems to disappoint me a lot, to be honest. I haven't seen too many lethal bait skins that I really like. The jaw's a little interesting again with the red highlights, but yeah, not too much to say about that. I mean, it's fine. None of these are bad. This is looking like a solid selection of skins altogether. They'll be really fun to release in a mixed, randomized herd of random skins. Well, it's some nice distinctions. I like, again, the stripe color here on this one. Pulkarana Death Valley. That looks pretty cool. That's a cool color, just that kind of slightly bluish black, I would say. Oh, they're fighting. Let's go check that out in a second. The head shape, or the head colorization seems fine. This kind of like fuchsia, pink, purple, blue mixture going on here. It's interesting. There's this little bit of orange here, kind of, which is interesting around the nasal area and then the jaw here. Yeah, that's fine. Shoot, the fighting notification went away. Who's fighting? You guys should chill out. I actually thought fighting was turned off, but clearly not. Oh, they're fighting. Oh, okay, well there! That's exactly the effect I was talking about with the head from Camp Cretaceous. So when the head is down here in this fighting pose, you actually do get the hump here at the back of the skull. Okay, well that's an impressive level of adherence to the creature from Camp Cretaceous. I wasn't even expecting that, and I wasn't even disappointed they didn't have that particular way the skull connects to the neck there. I want to see you, your position. Oh, the hands are actually proper dinosaur hands. Clapping, not, you know, patty caking. Right? I'm not sure if the hands are actually like that in Camp Cretaceous, to be honest. They weren't like that before. Oh, you know what this might be? This might be a rigging thing, where the fighting animations that they uses hands that are like this, whereas the Monolophosaurus' position itself has hands like this. Because if we look over here at any of ones of these, they had their hands curled around like that, with the wrong kind of wrist. Whereas these guys, the wrists are correct while they're fighting. Curious. I'm not sure which fighting animation this is from. Yeah, because now the hands are... I mean, the transition between hand formations is pretty good. So at least that's not jarring. It's weird that it would have the correct wrist positions when fighting and not when walking around. Excuse me. Death Valley Papurana. Again, we got that white speckled striping here. And then we get the blue crest that stands out pretty okay here. I like it when the colors can like stand out but not look like they're drawn on with a marker. So this is nice. Nice and subtle, stand out on the crest. Solid skin. Seems fine. That's got a solid deserty vibe to it again, this one. Again, the red on the muzzle. Death Valley Pelophylax. Pelophylax being the redder skin. It makes it look like it's been eaten somebody, maybe. A little bit here. I do like the red muzzle, though. It's pretty solid look on these guys, I think. It's not bad. I like that one more than the last one, probably. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to evaluate some of these, because they got different vibes to them. So it's not that one looks better than the other. It's kind of comes down to like what environment they go into, right? And then this will be the blank pattern. Death Valley blank. Not much to say about that. Excuse me. Looks fine. Next pattern. Ooh. Another body pattern here that looks pretty interesting. That's got a little bit of a big cat vibe to it, with the kind of yellowish under pattern and the darker stripes. Again, this very colorful Rana pattern crest. This is Great Sandy Desert Rana. I like the body on this one. That's pretty cool. Another good like desert vibe to that one. Rana pattern's pretty good for these guys in general. Pretty standout. My guests can complain about amenities all they want. This isn't a real park. Great Sandy Desert Calcorana. This one, yeah, all the head details are pretty well blended in, especially at a distance here into the base pattern. So if you want something without a crest pattern, that does a pretty good job of it. Really subtle body colorization again on the pattern. It has a niche. It can serve a purpose. Another lethal baits. Yeah, I still think lethal baits isn't doing much for me here. Great Sandy Desert lethal baits. It's fine. It's green on a brown, orangey sort of pattern or base color. If you wanted to make a park where all your dinosaurs maybe looked a little bit like they were covered in some sort of kind of fluorescent moss, you could do that. Again, I like this pattern a lot. I really like the color of the stripes on this pattern. This is Pulkarana. There's probably better base colors for this, though. This looks a little weird. The tail looks a little jarring, where you start to lose track of which things are the stripes and which things are the base color, kind of. I don't know. And then, I think the pink on the face really doesn't mesh with this worn brown on the body, either. I like the pattern. I don't think this is the base skin for it. Great Sandy Desert Papurana. Body looks interesting here. There's kind of like some highlight scales, like these greens. I haven't really noticed that on the other ones. I didn't at least, yeah, that's part of the base skin, I think. We get these little bits of green in here. Interesting. Other than that, we've got this is the one with a subtle blue crest. That seems pretty fine here. If you want a pretty subdued, but still different colored and distinctive patterning, this is pretty good for that, Papurana. Great Sandy Desert, or maybe even a different Papurana, or different base skin with Papurana might work pretty good there. I'm curious now, though, if these green highlights, or these sort of highlights on the body show up on these other ones. They really don't. Like, the green highlights look like they're a Great Sandy Desert thing, huh? If we go to, like, which one? Yeah, Death Valley. Death Valley doesn't seem to have these highlights either. Maybe we should go look at the blank. There's some different colors mixed in here, but they don't stand out like the green does in that skin. Death Valley blank. Oh, and there's the sitting animation. The arms folded underneath the body. I believe this is new, a new sitting animation if I recall correctly. I think I've seen that discussed somewhere. Little Carnotaurus-y, which is good because the Carno sitting animation is fantastic. Very bird-like, the way they tuck their limbs in like that underneath their body. Or cat-like too, I suppose. Alright, where are we here? We are over on this hatchery. It's pretty cool. Here's our red pattern. Very subtle red on the crest. And then the muzzle again. That's a good combination, I think, with this base skin. The really subtle striping gives it a good, I said this many times, a good desert vibe. Makes me think again of like a lizard. The subtlety here in the striping. This is Pelophylax, Great Sandy Desert combination. We can see again these highlight scales on the body, which are a really interesting feature of apparently just Great Sandy Desert base skin. You know, I haven't played with the species viewer yet. I wonder if you can zoom in that far on the species viewer. Because from what I've seen of it in action, it's kind of just static. Maybe people just haven't zoomed in on it, but... Oh yeah, you can see now with no patterning here that we got these green scales that show up all over the body, actually. They were just most obvious on the flank. But you can see them here even on the crest and along the tail without the rest of the pattern here. That makes this a fairly interesting base skin if you're like zooming in on it. As far as like unpatterned goes, this is probably one of the more interesting ones because of all those scale color differences in here. That's pretty cool. I dig it. I dig it. Our next skin pattern is going to be what? I don't remember the order of these. Ooh. Greener one? Is this... Are we to Salar del Huasco now? No, Champlain Valley. Okay, so Champlain Valley with the Rana patterning. Again, hot pink and purple. We get the purple stripes on the neck, too. It's a good base skin pattern. The Rana patterning is just... It's pretty good. I think this is a fine skin combination. I have nothing too big to say about that. It looks fine. I think this one looks a little bit better. The subtler striping and colorization I think matches the like desaturated green really well. This is Champlain Valley Calcarana. Yeah, I think this works really good. That's a solid subtle skin color. A lot of detail in the scales on this guy too. That's pretty cool. Next hatchery. Did we release? Wait. How many was that for Champlain Valley? 1, 2. That's 2. Okay. Well, who are you then? Okay, there's our lithobates. Alright, Champlain Valley lithobates. I don't know why there's 4 in this hatchery. I must have missed a skin. We'll have to fix that, patch that up here. Anyway. Green on green. I think that's a bit better use of lithobates than a lot of the other skins. It's going to look a little bit more natural here, in my opinion. This gives me kind of a snake vibe, actually. This one, just because I don't know why, but that's the vibe it's giving me. It's a little bit of a snake. Not much else to say about that. Next one we have is very distinctive looking at a glance. We'll have to see it in the full sunlight. Pucarana pattern on Champlain Valley base skin. I believe I said this before, but yeah, this is the stripe colors that I like. Looks fine on the green. Not the best base skin for this pattern, I don't think. And we've got our next one, which is Champlain Valley Papurana. This is the whiter stripes. Getting an iguana vibe from this one for some reason. It looks fine. The white on the green here is pretty good. You get this light colored, this light desaturated kind of green. This works pretty well with the white. The blue crest is fine on this look too. That's a solid looking mono, I think. Pretty good. Now, this is either the red skin or the unpatterned. We'll have to synth the last one here after this, I guess. Okay, this is the red. So this is Champlain Valley Pelophylax. We've got the red crest. The red crest looks pretty good on the green body here. A little bit Christmassy maybe, but I don't really get a Christmas vibe from something when the green is like fairly earthy and desaturated. It's an interesting look too because the red is fairly like vibrant, relatively speaking. So it stands out pretty well against that green. Yeah, there we go. We get it in the sunlight. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good look for the mono here. I can dig it. I can dig it. All right, let's get the last one out. And here's our blank skin. Thanks to the magic of pausing a recording. That is not correct. Yeah, so what I did is I selected random skin instead of the blank. Oh, very interesting colorization here on the blank. That's actually surprisingly involved. Did I mess it up again? No, that is in fact blank Champlain Valley. Look at the variation between the greens here. You get these splotches of brighter green and darker green and browns all mixed in. This is a really good unpatterned skin. It's like its own pattern with all these like green blotches and stuff. There's almost even striping on the tail here with these different brown sections. And the crest does have its own distinctive colorization too. That's, as far as blanks go, that's pretty good. If you're doing that challenge mode with like only no genetics, you could use that. Although I think that might be the herbivore one, I don't remember. Another Rana pattern. We've got, this must be Salar del Huasco with the more saturated green pattern or base color. Yeah, Salar del Huasco Rana. The green and black is a good look on the body for sure. Very distinctive colorization on the face again, of course, because it's the Rana pattern. I think it looks fine here. I really like the body on this one, but I mean, you're never gonna have a bad dinosaur if it's a green body with black stripes. That's a good look in general. This one looks pretty decent too. You get the more subtle crest. It's a good combination in like a male female vibe here. Switching from Rana to Pulkarana, or Calcarana rather, I mean. Where it looks like you get the subtler striping, the subtler crest colors and everything. That's a good look. Just the pair there. Yeah, not too much to say about that. Kind of a subtler variation of the previous one without all that really vibrant head stuff going on. That's probably our best lethal bait skin we've seen. Salar del Huasco lethal baits. I like this one actually. I actively like this. The dark green and the light green stripes here works really well. Especially the tail looks really good and like the hip section here. These stripes. They get a little indistinct on the forward part of the body, but it's still pretty good. Then you got the way you get the darker regions of the muzzle that kind of blend with this bit here in the neck that's darker. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's definitely leagues above the other lethal baits patterned skins we've seen. Hands down the best lethal baits variation so far. This is the subtly blue-black striping, I think. Pulkarana, Salar del Huasco Pulkarana. Again, green with blackish striping is never going to look bad. I think I like the face on this one more than the Rana pattern. I think it's a little bit more subtle, which I think works good here in this skin base color. I think this is pretty good. I like it. I dig it. It's a solid one. It'd be really difficult to rank these in any meaningful sense. Next up, Salar del Huasco Papurana. This is Pulkarana. I always get confused by some of the very similar names, but yes. Papurana Salar del Huasco. Again, seems fine. We get the white striping on the green here. Solid. Subtle crest pattern. Not too much to say about this. The eye stands out pretty good here. How much does the eye vary between, like, the forms? This eye has a very red rim around it, which is a really fierce look. Is it always pretty red? Oh, you're playing with your face. I mean, here it looks less obviously red, but the skin is red, so that's kind of a thing. Chewing on his little paw there. Adorable. Yeah, it's probably the same eye color on them all, I would assume. It's just depending on the skin, it stands out more or less. And on these guys with the green, it stands out. The red against the green on the eye is very vivid and distinct. Really good look, for sure. Which makes sense since the base creature is green in the show. The eye colorization there is very obvious. Obvious design choice for that color. This one looks pretty good. We're looking at our Pilophylax. Again, the red crest and muzzle. Meshes pretty good with the eye. Red of the eye and the red of the crest. They're different shades of red. Same with the muzzle. But not bad, not bad. Stripes are, they're fine. They work with the green. Again, reminding me a lot of like a lizard, maybe an iguana. I don't know. I'm not overtly familiar with iguanas, having not ever had one or anything, so... Who knows what an iguana actually looks like? Nobody's ever seen an iguana. And this should be the blank. Salar del Huasco blank. Gives us a good look at the scales on the base color here. It's, yeah, you do get the subtle variations here in the tail. It's almost like, it's not even like striped. It's like a there's like two blobs here, and then there's nothing. And then two blobs here, and then two blobs there. It's like a weird sort of striping. That's really strange. I wonder if it's almost a copy-pasted section of texture. You get this section of texture here, and you just copy-paste it along the tail. I mean, it might actually be a deliberate design decision and not just a copy-pasting thing. Or it can be both. It can be a deliberate design decision and copy-pasted, to be fair. I mean, that's perfectly legitimate. Not much going on in the body. The tail is the thing that stood out to me here on this base skin. Ooh, you're very, very dark looking. I think I like that. That looks pretty good. This is Limpopo River Rana, so this is one of the dark skin bases. It makes the pinks and fuchsias and purples of the head really stand out. I like it. I think this is a really good skin combo. You get the really dark body with the even darker stripes with a little bit of blue and purple highlighting in here down the tail. And then this really vivid head. That's a good combo. I dig it. I dig it. Limpopo Rana. Solid. And then the solar variation, falling right off of Rana. Very yellow snout on this one. It really stands out with the base colorization. How yellow this striping here is. This is Limpopo River Calcarana. The striping on the body gets pretty subtle here, but it still stands out white against black in a very vague sense. It's a very gray white against a very green black, but you know what I mean. Light on dark. It works. We got our lithobates. I think this one works. Limpopo River lithobates. The green is very green, standing out against this dark skin. But I don't think that's that bad in this case. I think this kind of works against some of my previous statements with lithobates, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. It's an interesting vibe on this one, I think. Kind of a forest vibe. Right? It's something you could see in a forest, like the look of shaded undergrowth versus like the lit up leaves. You get that kind of camouflagey pattern going on there a little bit. They got good sounds too, the monos. Never mentioned that before, but they got some good chirps and stuff going on here. It's pretty cool. Another fairly subtle patterning with this like light blue. This is Limpopo River pulcharana. The face does stand out again pretty good here. Again, giving me very strong like tropical bird vibes. Although the body being darker maybe doesn't make that stand out as much. Eye stands out a lot on this one again. Solid. Very solid. And here's the blue on the crest. This is Limpopo River Papurana. Getting that white on the dark base color looks fine here. Oh, there's some really interesting stuff here going on the flank with these oranges and the way they like blend upwards into everything else. Probably a base pattern thing again. There's some interesting variation in these base patterns, surprisingly so. The blue on the crest here it's fine. Fairly subtle, but subtle often works. It's still bright enough compared to the base color that it stands out pretty good. This should be the red crest. Pelophylax, right? Am I getting used to remembering these colors offhand? Yep, Limpopo River Pelophylax. Yeah, I like the red on the dark. That's always a good look. Black and red are a good combo, even though it's not, black, but you know what I mean. And then, yeah, kind of the sandy or yellowy stripes. Definitely like the red of the crest more than I do the stripe color on Pelophylax. I think that's probably true of most of the previous ones we've looked at, where definitely the head is the most distinctive part of Pelophylax. For sure. And then this is the unpatterned base skin. Limpopo River blank. We're seeing that distinctive orange speckling coming up from the counter shading on the belly here, up into the mane. Gets this kind of little bit of rust colorization going on the flank. It's a really interesting base skin again. As far as base skins go without patterning, this one's pretty good. That's a lot of different subtle colorization stuff going on there. These guys are fighting again over here. Ooh, kicked his ass, knocked him down. Okay, guy. Well, we've seen them jumping at each other before. The knockdown bit was new there. Well, our next pattern is drumroll because I don't know. Ooh, this is the very light colored, whitish grayish skin. That looks pretty good. Qilian Mountains Rana. That is a good skin. That's a really distinctive look. Very good for like kind of an alpine park build. I like it. I like the distinctiveness of the head crest against the white body. It's a really good look. It gives me like a turkey vibe, right? Where you got like the distinctively colored head versus the body of a more different shade. Although with the turkey, obviously, it's like the brown of feathers versus like the red bird flesh of the head. A little different, but the comparison I think kind of works, kind of holds. Qilian Mountains Calcarana, very subtle. I think I like the Qilian Mountain skin with the vibrant crest like Rana here, more than I do with the subtle crest of Calcarana. It's not bad. I mean, the subtle crests still stand out pretty well overall because of how muted the base skin is. It still does the job. It'll be interesting to see the red skin on this one. Pelophylax, that'll be really cool. Yeah, I don't think this one works with lethal baits very well again. The green looks a little weird on the white. Yeah, Qilian Mountains lethal baits. Not too much to say about this. Yeah, I don't think lethal baits. I'm just not a big fan in general of the color of lethal baits. It works occasionally, but I feel like lethal baits has consistently been the most disappointing pattern color for me across multiple dinosaurs. That probably is partially down to personal preferences. This one's interesting. We get the darker stripes on the white base color here, whitish. I really like I like the jaw and eye, the way you get this like ring of black circling the head. That's really cool. That's a really cool look for this dinosaur. The way that's just an interesting idea, kind of this notion of this single stripe circling the whole head like that. Pretty interesting. And there's the bluer crest. Body colorization is really subtle here, but the this one's a little interesting. Qilian Mountains Paparana. This one was Pulkarana. So Qilian Mountains Paparana's got this interesting thing to it where kind of the thing that makes the stripes stand out is actually the dark bit on the border. If you remove the dark bit, I think you would have the interior part blend pretty well with the base skin color. And so that's an interesting look in its own right, because it kind of doubles the amount of stripes on it almost, because you're so focused on the border instead of the stripe interior. Very interesting. The subtle blue works pretty well with the white base skin. That's not bad. The eye, again, pops very well on the white skin. That's it for that hatchery. We got the red Pilophylax. Yeah, I don't like this one as much as I thought I might. The red actually looks a little weird on the white. Just a little bit. It gives more of like a bloody muzzle vibe for sure. And then the yellow doesn't really do it for me here on the lighter colored pattern either. Yeah, actually a bit disappointed by the Pilophylax Qilian Mountains. Thought that might have looked better before I saw it. We're missing a dinosaur from this hatchery. How'd that happen? Well, we got the Qilian Mountains unpatterned. Qilian blank. That is a very blank skin. Very white. White and gray and beige. About what you would expect. Okay, what are you? This is either going to be Rana or the secondary one. Okay, we got the Rana, it looks like. Yukon River Rana. So Yukon River, another one of those dark skins. This one's more brown than black, I guess. Although I think it looks... No, it looks pretty brown here in the preview. Black stripes on brown works. This has a very subtle vibe to me in the body, so I don't think the facial colorization works for me on this one in particular. Very bright face on a very kind of a very subtle earthy body is kind of a little weird. Next up, that works pretty well. This is tapping into what I said about the colorization of the face. The Yukon River Calcarana, the subtler face colors work really well with the Yukon River skin. Yeah, I like this one. That's a great look for Yukon River, I think. Very, very subtle. I dig it. I dig it. I dig it. Okay, this should be, hopefully this is correct, and we got the next one here. Yep, lethal baits. Okay. I'm going to probably go ahead and say that another lethal bait skin that really doesn't work for me. Yukon River lethal baits. Again, yeah, the green on the brown ain't doing it for me here. Yep. Not impressed. Not impressed by lethal baits in the slightest. I think we made good progress here looking through these skins. We can probably say that Rana is generally the best pattern and lethal baits is generally the weakest. This one's pretty good. Yukon River Pulkarana. You get the, again, the striping going around the eye looks really good on this skin, this base skin. And you get a vibrant crest color, but it doesn't overdo it as strongly as Rana does. That's solid. It gets you a more vibrant. It's like halfway between the first two skins, where you get the vibrancy of Rana, but it's not as overwhelming as Rana can be. There's our blue crest, Yukon River Papu Rana. Subtle blue works pretty well with the base skin color, I think. The white stripes on brown works pretty good too. It's a solid skin. There's nothing that stands out too much about it. It just looks fine. Looks like a solid, good skin to have. It's not really jumping out. And no details are really jumping out to me on that one. We got Pilophylax. I think I'm liking this one. I think the yellow works well with the brown for the stripes. The yellow stripes and the brown pattern's good. I think the red and the brown works pretty well too for the head crest. Yeah, that's a good look. That's a good Pelophylax Yukon. That's a good skin for Yukon River and a good skin for Pelophylax overall. You also get like this yellow around the eye a little bit, it looks like. Although that might be a trick of the light. Now that I zoom in, it looks more white. I guess it's this kind of ring here, this bit here, that makes that look kind of yellow when you're zoomed out more, but that's not actually accurate. Yeah, that's a good skin, for sure. Unpatterned, blank. Which skin were we on? Was this Yukon River? I forgot now. Yeah, blank Yukon River. Not much to say about that. Yukon River is pretty much just a white underbelly and a darker upper body color. Just some counter shading. Nothing, no like highlight scales there or anything. Some sort of mistake appears to have happened. Okay, we got a Svalbard out of place. Oh, I skipped a hatchery. Oh no! Okay, well we'll do this Svalbard first. So we're skipping ahead, I guess, to Pelophylax because I somehow skipped an entire hatchery. Alright, well, Svalbard, Pelophylax, Svalbard being the very black pattern. The yellow on black is always a good look, bumblebee pattern. Red on black, also a good look. This is a solid skin here. This is pretty decent. The white, actually, the bottom white here on the counter shading on the belly and under the jaw especially is a bit distracting, actually. I think this would look a lot better if it had a dark underbelly to go with the dark upper skin, and then the yellow striping and the red on the face would be the thing that made it stand out more. This should be the Rana Svalbard. How did I skip ahead an entire hatchery? Ah, man. That looks pretty good. Again, very tropical bird, but the head pattern is standing out a lot on this one. I like the subtlety of the body striping here, where they get the black stripes on the black body, but they're dark black versus a lighter black. That from like this kind of mid-range, that looks pretty good. I dig it. Another solid Rana skin for sure. Svalbard Rana, looking good. Svalbard. Is this Calcarana? Svalbard Calcarana. Not bad. We get the orange crest with the yellow on the muzzle. Orange black. Also another good color combination. You know what? Everything goes with black. Black is a great color to wear and a great color to be. That's a damn good. All these Svalbard patterns are damn good on these monos. That's good stuff. They got a good colorization. Is this going to actually be an acceptable Lethabate skin? It's one of the better Lethabates, I'd say. Again, I'm kind of distracted by the white counter shading, especially on the neck. It's a little jarring, a little too bright for me. I think a beige or just no counter shading on this one would have looked a little bit better. Yeah. Lethabates looks okay there. It's still, in terms of the Svalbard skins, Lethabates, Svalbard is one of the more disappointing ones so far. That's a good look too. Like Rana but subtler again is a good look here. This is Svalbard Pulka Rana. The stripe colorization of this bluer stripe on the black is decent. Crest being this still bright standout crest, social animation in the background again. The bright crest is still pretty good, but it's just a subtler variation of Rana, which I think works pretty good with the black body pattern. Mono number whatever. This is the blue crest. Interesting look with the white stripes. The white stripes look really good here with the actual counter shading on the belly. At least they're both like shades of white, so they actually kind of match. Blue crest is fine on this. Not much to say about that. I think the standout thing here is the matching kind of colors between the stripes and the body. I think that's the most notable thing there. And then this should be the blank Svalbard. Actually looks like there's a lot going on here in the skin pattern, which is a little surprising. We've got these, especially if you look at it from the side like this, you can see these kind of almost purplish highlights in the black patterning, which is interesting. I think the counter shading again is a bit too bright on this one. I think I'd prefer a duller belly color, especially in the neck and face region for this skin. Still one of the better unpatterned skins as far as those go. Ooh, now that is a look. Now we're getting into some of the spicier skins. We're looking at Amazon Rainforest Rana here. That's a pretty good look. I like, first off, just the skin color is pretty good. Rana's obviously pretty interesting. I like that the kind of yellow here in the snout looks very similar actually to the counter shading. Although the counter shading's got a little bit more of an orange beige kind of tinge to it. A little oranger than the clearly yellow in the snout. But it's still a cool look to it where you got these multiple layers of colorization running down the muzzle. Going from pink to dark to pink to like yellow to dark to yellow. Very interesting. Definitely like the bluish base skin color on this. This is going to be a really cool one to see. This one has some good possibilities in it, I think. We get the yellow and orange. That works again in similar fashion where the crest now is kind of the same color as the counter shading, which is an interesting little look. I don't think I like this one as much. Amazon Rainforest Calcarana. But still, Amazon Rainforest is pretty interesting looking. Definitely some good possibilities for Amazon Rainforest skins here. You know what? That's not a terrible lithobates. You know, on the ranking of lithobates, that's not terrible. Again, still lithobates. Still not really doing it for me. But if you want some lithobates, I think this is a decent combo. Really interesting having these purple highlights in the blue of the body and then the green of the striping. It's like a bunch of crayons melted together, maybe. That's the look you're going for, I suppose. That's certainly an option. Amazon Rainforest Pulka We're getting a more of like a rosy colorization, rosier version of the Rana patterning. It seems fine here. I think I like the Rana the most. This is a fairly distinctive bright body patterning, so I think the bright crest works really well in the Rana one. This is just kind of a worse version of that in this case. In other cases, Pulkaranas look better, I think. In this case, The body striping is pretty subtle on this one, which I think is interesting. I think that's what I like the most about this, is this interesting, subtle striping on the body. It gives it a really cool vibe. It's pretty cool. Pretty interesting look on that body. Ooh, that one's an interesting look as well. So the blue on the crest is really subtle with the base color of Amazon. This is Amazon Rainforest Paparana. But you get the really distinctive striping with the white coming out. That's an interesting look. I don't know, the more I look at it, the less sure I am I actually like it that much. I don't know, that one's hard for me to evaluate. That's a weird one. Where's our red patterning? I like this one more. Amazon Rainforest Pilophylax. It's interesting here how we've got this sandier colored jaw, this yellow or orangish, whitish bit coming in here, which makes the red on the jaw less distinctive, but you still get the red on the crest in the front here that still stands out pretty good. Just this bit down here kind of blends in. The body colorization is an interesting one here, with this yellow striping on this more interestingly colored Amazon skin. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the last skin, where it's a little hard to evaluate, kind of. The tip of the tail looks weird on this one to me. Having this yellow tip here coming out. I mean, it seems fine. Amazon Rainforest skin is a skin type, looks pretty good, so... it's very, very visually distinctive, just that color, for sure. This one might be promising. Amazon Rainforest blank. Oh yeah, we're on the blank pattern. So yeah, the Amazon Rainforest without a pattern actually looks pretty good. Because you get the splotching. Again, we've got kind of this double pattern going on here. Where you get 2 spots, 2 spots, 2 spots. Heading down the tail, 4 sets of 2 spots. You can see on the body plan here too, it looks like where there's these 2 splotches there. That's a pretty cool blank pattern as far as those go. You still get a lot of variation. You get an interesting look to it. Yeah, I like the Amazon Rainforest. Kind of any pattern or blank works there. Moving on to... Ooh. Okay. Interesting. What do we got here? We've got Mangrove Forest Rana. So mangrove is the purple pattern. It's a very dark, dark purple. You can see the purple along the body, though. It's definitely purple. But it's just very, very dark. I like it, though. I like again, the subtle striping is good here. The way the stripes blend into the body color pretty well. And then you got the vibrant Rana head, of course, which is really the selling point of Rana. We get that nice sitting animation again. Yeah, that's a good skin, I think. It's a good skin pattern. We're almost done. It's almost an hour. This one's going to be longer than the Herrera video. Oh, that's quite the look, too. The red, it looks very red along the sides of the body here. Again, it's more of a purple, but I think it's maybe partially, I don't know, the contrast between the different elements makes the flanks look rather red. Like here and this bits. They look rather red. I think this works. Hey, now we get a good view of that social animation. I think this is another good combo that works really well as like a male and a female kind of vibe to it. Especially because you get this sandy color on the crest that matches the belly, the counter shading. So it really makes it look like the crest is not colorized compared to this one. Where it's just the normal, you know, it's just like you strip that fuchsia pink paint off of the dinosaur and you just have the base, you know, yellow-orange subtle colorization shining through them. That's a cool 1-2 combo. I think these two look really good together as a pair. That's a really neat thing with the skin system in the second game versus the first, is it lets you do that kind of headcanon things as male-female colorizations. We've got lethal baits here again. Mangrove Forest lethal baits. The red's standing out again on the body flank where there's this kind of red mixed in with the purple. Very like cranberry color red. I think the face looks a little weird on this one. Just like the way the black stands out, surrounded by these greens and reds here, looks, or the really dark purple looks kind of weird to me. I don't know. It's not going to be news if I say lethal baits doesn't do it for me. So, lethal baits doesn't do it for me. Again, probably the better half of lethal baits, but That looks pretty good. Mangrove Forest Pulkarana. We're getting, again, another variation on that kind of subtler variation of Rana patterning here. I think the purple meshes well with the purple of the body, though. I think that looks really good. The stripes are maybe a little weird on this one. The blue on purple, it's not bad. It's just something feels a little weird about it to me, maybe. It's not a bad skin at all. It's pretty good. Yeah, again, another one where the red is standing out a lot here. The white striping on the purple looks alright. Yeah, I don't have too much to say about this. It's fine. It's a perfectly good skin. Mangrove is a fairly distinctive colorization. This is Mangrove Forest Paparana, by the way. Mangrove Forest does add a lot just by itself, so I think this is a perfectly fine pattern to slap on Mangrove for a little bit of color variation. What was I trying to say? A little bit of color variation. Oh my god. Words are mangled on Mangrove Forest. Seems fine. It is not a standout mangrove forest skin in my mind, but it is perfectly fine for mangrove. Mangrove with the red crest. Purple and yellow should work pretty well. Yeah, I think that's fine for the body. The red on the face here doesn't stand out that much against the dark purple, but it's not bad. Kind of gives me like a wine vibe, right? This dark purples and reds. It's like he's a wine-based Monolophosaurus. Yeah, I think I like that one. I think that's pretty decent. Probably not my favorite of this particular base skin, but it's solid. Solid middle of the pack one, probably. And then the base skin itself, I think this is just a good base skin. Again, we're getting that two-tone pattern here where we got these splotches that stand out pretty well on the body. I think this is a pretty good unpatterned skin. I don't know, I just like the colorization of it. And the red on the purple. It's an interesting look. Next, we have, I think, our last skin color before we get to the canon skin, which is also included. So now we're getting the more, Gambia River Basin, this more deeper green, brighter green, I guess you could say, especially along the flanks. If we can get them, kind of into the sunlight here a little bit. You can see there's like some brighter green highlights in here, it looks like. Again, Rana pattern, Gambia River Basin Rana. Rana's a good pattern. That's a really interesting look to it, actually, with how dark the body is here, but still green. And with the way the crest stands out. That's pretty good. I like it. I'm liking this one. This is one where I think the counter shading works pretty well, too. It's still this duller green, but it's still green. It's not some glaring white standing out. I think that looks pretty damn good. It's going to be really hard for me to pick a favorite on these monos. I think some dinosaurs have like a clear winner for skin patterns. I think this one is one where they look really good in mixed herds. I think this looks pretty good too. Good subtle variation on it, but still pretty good. I like that we're getting just different shades of green throughout the body here, which is great. Oh, now we're getting Dua voiceover. Why now? That's really weird. Anyway. Subtle colorization on the crest works pretty well. Green with more earthy yellows and browns and oranges. Yeah, that's pretty good. Those are two. I think we're 2 for 2 on pretty good Gambia River skins. Or Gambia Basin, whatever. 2 for 2 on good Gambia skins. Kajal, shut up!
Now they can fight in captivity.
That one also, that's pretty good. For lethal baits, that's pretty good. I think it helps that we're looking at kind of different shades of green throughout the whole thing. It gives it kind of a cohesive patterning, having this light green here. Yeah, that's one of the better lethal bait skins for sure. It's also like actually the same color as the counter shading on the belly, which works really well. That we get these stripes that match this color down here. It looks way more cohesive than most of the other lethal baits, which look a little bit jarring. That is probably the best lethal bait skin, I would imagine. Also, the little bit of apple colorization on the stout doesn't really add or subtract to it in my mind. Oops, we have to unpause. I think you might be in the way of my hatchery animation still. I think we fucked that one up. Oh no, we don't get the full animation. We've seen it a billion times. It's fine. We can watch it from the bird's eye view. This is Gambia River Basin Pulkarana, the subtler variation of that crest color, basically. Yeah, I think I probably liked Rana more here on this one. Not bad. These Gambia skins have been pretty good. Definitely a winner. Ah, I did a good job muting there before I sneezed. I'm proud of myself. This is an interesting look. Gambia River Basin Papurana. I'm not sure I like the white on this one. It's an interesting look for sure. Distinctive. I think I prefer these more melded tones for Gambia so far. I think the white here stands out too much against the skin. Crest color's fine with the green. Yeah, I think this is my least favorite so far for Gambia River Basin. I don't think that one works for me very much. We get the red Pelophylax. Interested to see this one again. Interesting. I think this one, Gambia River Basin Pelophylax, has kind of the same issue as the last, where the stripes on the body kind of look off. I think the colors that blend together really well look a lot better on Gambia. And this distinctive yellow doesn't really work for me. The red on the crest and muzzle would be pretty good, I think, with just different stripe colors again. Which is a problem we've run into with Pelophylax a few times, where the colorization, like, on the body versus the head, just, they have completely different vibes with the base skin. And if we could have one or the other, it would look like a better dinosaur overall. That would be an interesting evolution to see in, like, a theoretical Jurassic World Evolution 3, is to have different parts of the body patterning separated into different sections. Anyway, here we got Gambia River Basin blank. Gambia River Basin looks like a good skin, and that continues to be true for the blank pattern here. I think I like this one better with patterns. Well, I mean, that's true of most of these skins, right? They look better with the right kind of pattern on them. I think this one, though, looks a lot better with striping, because the way the green here, like, we got this green that really stands out where the transition between the counter shading on the belly and the upper part is. Well, I guess you can't have counter shading if there's not another shade to counter, right? The entire effect of a dark upper body and a lower or brighter lower body is counter shading. So it's not fair to say that this part is the counter shading. The whole thing is the counter shading. But yeah, the darker color on the top and the lighter color on the bottom with this bright green transitional layer looks much better when you don't see these other splotches of brighter green that are mixed in here. When these are obscured a bit on the top of the dinosaur by more stripes and patterning, it makes this transitional region here look more interesting. So yeah, I'm going to say that it's one of the more distinctive base patterns, but this dinosaur benefits immensely from the pattern being added too. Alright, and last but not least, we have the canonical Camp Cretaceous skin that's included. This is the 2015 skin. So I'm curious how much this differentiates from the other ones. We'll have to let it walk out into the light, unfortunately. This is not a great side for a hatchery to be on. I had to add this one for the extra skin. Okay, so there we got to look at it. So I guess what we're looking at here is the counter shading is much more subtle than the other ones. Still pretty similar. You still get the jaw outline here that's still counter shaded. We've got kind of a splotchy pattern with like the almost veiny look to this colorization here on the body, which is a bit more distinctive. Again, no stripes. And then yeah, you've got like orange, kind of a really subtle orange inflating into this like dirty color look to it, and then coming out in the top with green. You get a much more gradual transition between these colors, it looks like, than the frontier skin does. Yeah, and it's especially higher up on the side of the body. Yeah, because the green doesn't really kick in until you get up here to like above the hip and above the shoulder, whereas on the other patterns you get the transition happening more around the armpit and the crotch. So it is pretty distinctive. And obviously, being the canonical skin, it's got its own special place in all of this. Eye stands out pretty good, but of course that's part of the deliberate design. Yep, that's the Camp Cretaceous Monolophosaurus, or at least one of the variations of the Camp Cretaceous Monolophosaurus. It's a little interesting to me that we get the frontier skin and all these variations, and then just like kind of the one Camp Cretaceous mono. I could have seen them include the gray variation too, especially because we got double paraluxes. But I mean, if they included every skin variation you have in Camp Cretaceous, the DLC would be insane, because Camp Cretaceous is insane with skin variations that never show up again in the franchise, which is weird. Where every dinosaur is like a different color. Limitations, of course, I guess. You know, you design a model, it gets a distinctive color. It's a big film project, the movies that is. So you don't want to produce all these different colorizations. Whereas for Camp Cretaceous, the CG models are simpler and they're easier to recolor. I suppose it makes sense that way. Yeah, well, there's the last of the Monolophosaurus skins then. So it's a really interesting dinosaur. Really solid. Some dinosaurs have like a few good skin combinations. This one has a lot of really good skin combinations. I definitely look forward to seeing some mixed herds of this in action. I think it's pretty solid. If you've made it all the way through this absurdly long video, I appreciate you for sticking around. I don't plan to do another one of these for this DLC. This is just going to be the only one of these I think I do, unless for some reason this gets insane traction and I feel some need to keep doing these. We'll probably like pick one dinosaur from like every DLC release or whatever to look at in depth like this. I think it's really nice to see all these different skins in the environment as opposed to just the species viewer. I think you can see them a bit better this way. Seeing them in their environment, surrounded by grass and stuff like this, I think gives you a better idea of how the skins really look in practice than just seeing them in a black void. That's my opinion, at least. Yeah, but I mean, at these kind of videos, if people like these, I can also do some for some more base game species. We can always take a deeper look at some of the other dinosaurs that are already in the game, too. And we'll definitely do some more of these for DLC species as they come out. Unless, of course, at some point the species viewer gets some update that renders this completely obsolete instead of partially obsolete. In which case, I probably won't bother.